35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7.
6.
5.
4.
3.
2.
1.
Hey, Rocky, you want to see me pull a show out of my hat? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And wow, we got some really big news today that came across my X feed and all that. So if you're listening or watching this on the Twitter, the X, whatever they call that now, then hey, you can actually comment and it'll come up on our feed here on the show. So now we have all three. We have the trifecta. We have YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. No, we have 3 avenues, no waiting. That's great. We have a show lined up for you. Now, obviously, I could not get my guest. I'm at to work on that some more. Somehow I lost my contact with him. And now I've had to do a little plan B. Of course, with Christmas and everything, it all gets all mixed up. But I got a really good guest on. We got David Shelton on. He is the Knox County clerk, and he is in charge of the election down there, and he runs a really tight ship. Very, very knowledgeable about the voting process. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, and I don't want to alarm you, but he's got a big political button content, thing back there, because usually when he's on, David, how you doing tonight? I see I got a 1 button thing for me. You got, how many buttons you got back there? Probably 1,000?
Getting close to 2,500.
2,500. Wow, that's more voters than's in Knox County. So really, how many voters do you have in Knox County?
A little over 22,000 currently.
Yeah. See, look at this guy. I could ask him any question. How deep is the Wabash River?
Depends on time of year. It's been a little shallow here lately.
Yeah, that sounds like a politician answer there. It depends on things. So
it may get shallower if they do that LEAP project up north.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we may be covering that coming up here, and you'd be glad you're not up in that hot water, so to speak. That's good. So, David, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the Knox County clerk, like you stated. As such, I'm the top election official in my county. I've been a clerk for 5 years now. I've got 3 more to go until I'm term limited out. But the elections, it's just my passion. It's my favorite part of the job.
Now, you did run for Secretary of State at the convention. That's how we pick, the GOP picks their person. And I thought you did a very good job. And that's how I met you. You were out there putting some common sense in the place where it needs common sense. I can say that. And what kind of experience was that because that's a little bit different than running for Knox County clerk, right?
It was a little different, even though it was a state convention type run, it's still a statewide race, and you definitely need more than 100 days to run a campaign statewide. And that's basically what I did. I just couldn't pull the trigger quick enough on there last year was my first year as a vote center county. And I just couldn't abandon my little project of going to vote centers and start running sooner than what I did.
Yeah, and it's that's a bigger step on things, but I think you made a name for yourself on that. Well, let's see. We're going to go ahead and play small talk, because Mark's a little wound up. When I got the small talk from him today, I'm like, hey, he's a little agitated here. So I'm going to put him on there, and then we're going to put you on the hot seat, and we're going to start asking some questions about this election, because we have some poll results here that really don't show a lot of trust in the election system. So hopefully you'll be able to bring a little bit of faith back into the system with how you run things. And maybe others might watch this show and learn how to run things better. So let's listen to see what Mark Small has to say.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. I'm going to say some boring stuff here at the beginning and then inflammatory stuff at the end. Our election system is very secure. After the 2020 election, no matter how many times the people for Trump tried to say it was somehow fixed or wrong or anything like that, they couldn't prove it. You know why? Because it wasn't. I worked on the elections here in Marion County, 3 elections. Every time we have ballots cast, their paper, they go into the machine. Afterwards, people from the 2 major political parties sit there to make sure everything's right. Then everything's taken to a central center on the northern part of the county at that time and turned in. There's a really, really diligent effort made to make sure that everything is done right at that stage. Now, you want to know where the vote theft occurs? It's when racist people say, well, let's somehow figure ways we gerrymander so we can keep a majority in whatever house of Congress or the state legislature that we possibly can. That's the inflammatory part, because that's what is happening across the board. It's the Republican Party that's doing the steal thing. Trump lost by 3 million in 2016 and took that office. He lost by nearly 7 million in 2020. Now, the bad part is he's glad to destroy this country just so he can secure that. And that's a fact. They've got all those documents in Mar-a-Lago. I'll tell you one thing that they weren't used for, and that's toilet paper, regardless of where they found them. Because there were so many of the copies of the Constitution of the United States that were already being used for that reason. They didn't need any more. Mark Small, Small Talk. Peace.
Yeah, he was a little agitated. I don't want to bring this up, but we don't call it toilet paper anymore. It's bathroom tissue, Mark. I'm sorry, but you showed your age there a little bit on that. So let's get David out here, and I'll tell you what, he's a little fired up. Now, for point of reference, Mark Small went to the Supreme Court about Russian interference with the Trump election. So he's got a very big axe to grind with that situation. So, and I think he's probably not going to be happy this fall, because it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get Trump on any legal things, because the cases that I've seen seem like, wow, that's pretty far-fetched what they're trying to do. So, and I think that a lot of people don't want to see Biden and Trump again, but it sure looks that way. So anyway, let's get to it here. Let's get Lucy. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing incredible. I'm glad to not be in my car and to have a ring light. Still don't have any makeup. I couldn't find that. The kids got me new makeup for Christmas and a fancy bag to put it all in, and now I don't know where it is.
You need a daytimer to find your stuff. Well, we're glad to have you, and your dedication to the show is
second only to yours.
Well, I don't know. I think you keep me going on this thing, and Tiffany said she's not here tonight, so I didn't have time to find a replacement. So, but we have you guys here. So, Brad, what's up tonight? What are you doing? I still sporting the chops, I see.
I am. I'm trying to form them into something like more normal than what was sort of a whim last week.
Yeah,
so
it's keep it up. I like it. I like it a lot. It really. You need a nice plaid shirt to go with those two, and maybe.
No, I loved Small Talk. Like, it was depressing again, but like it was my kind of depressing, kind of.
Yeah.
I feel like when Mark talks about gerrymandering, I don't know if it's as racist as it is like more just political. Like it's more they're trying to get what they want, like voting wise. I don't think it's as much race as it is
party. It's definitely party, because if you look at the Marion County situation, it was done that way, and you look at the state how they do it.
But I also feel that like it needs a new name. I don't think gerrymandering works. I feel like it's almost confusing to the public. Like it's almost not taken seriously.
Because we should call it Karen Mandering. Karen Mandering. That would be better. Karen Mandering. Or that would be,
it's just like Jerry. It really does happen. It's just I don't know how to make it a bigger issue. at the local level without, sounding like a conspiracy theorist, I guess.
Yeah, well, we'll have that coming up. Don't worry, I
Well,
got to
of
go
course, yeah,
tonight. But David, down in your area, did you experience any gerrymandering down there?
Absolutely not. I was neck deep into redistricting down here in 21 and 22. It's all about population deviation. Rule of thumb on a local level, you need to have a population deviation between your council districts under 10%. Nothing's set in stone. But when you're in a higher level, when you're talking about congressional apportionment or your state house districts, congressional apportionment, that's down to the person based upon your census data. So we have 9 congressional districts in Indiana. 8 of them have the exact same number, and 1 of them had 1 more person in there. And again, it's all based on your census data. When you get down to your state level district, your state house, your state senate, you got to get it down to 1/10 of 1%. But on the local level, down to under 10%. So when I started in Knox County, even though technically it's a function of the county commissioners, your county executives, they didn't get a whole lot of information, instructions on how to do it. I kind of dove into it, learned how to do it, downloaded the census data, created the maps, overlaid them with your existing council districts, and you just start moving census blocks around. And I got Knox County down to 7.49%. The city of Vincennes, I went ahead and did that a year early with their help and their blessing. And we got the city of Vincennes to, I believe it's 2.9% population deviation. So it's this equal population. I mean, there's a lot of things that are screwy when it comes to redistricting after the census. Your prison populations are counted. Personally, I don't think they should be counted because they're disenfranchised. They don't enjoy any of the benefits of government other than 3 hots and a cot, so to speak.
They may get out before 10 years is up, though.
Well,
You just don't know.
That's true too.
They probably won't stay in Knox County. That's for sure. Is it? You're right. That's a tight place down there. Hey, so one of the things that I was looking at is it's got to be down to the right number, and I think that would have to be tricky. And people say, well, why has it got all these squiggly lines, and why does it go over there and get this and do that? I think it would be. I don't know. Did you doing it?
The whole state's divided up in what you call census blocks. Now, it can be a city block, it can be a 40-acre field, but those census blocks are basically set in stone, and you can't split those in any way. And they're sometimes irregular. They could follow a railroad right of way and be long and skinny and have 1 person, and the thing stretches for half a mile. Or like I said, it could be an apartment complex where you have 1,000 people in 1 little block. So
right.
It's all about doing the math and adding and subtracting and moving a block here and a block there. You worry about having contiguous districts and communities too. You want to address that too, and as compact as possible. But sometimes it's not a perfect thing.
No, I'm glad that Mars Hill was split down the middle before, and then they fixed it. So whoever gerrymandered ours is okay. One of the things is, though, we think about, well, it's gerrymandered. Well, a lot of Democrats will live in one area, and a lot of Republicans will live in one area. It's rare that you see a very desegregated area, honestly. I mean, the cities are more Democrat and rural areas are more Republican in general. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the term gets to be a little interesting on how that works. And people would think, oh, wow, there's a conspiracy there on this gerrymandering. Well, it's got to be tricky to do it without any of that stuff. So when you start adding that in, you might be able to fudge it here or there, but for the most part, it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yes. Okay. Well, Lucy, you guys want to ask some questions? You want me to go through some poll results? What do you want to do? You want to ask questions?
Well, no, I'm absolutely fascinated with David Shelton. So let me ask you this, David, because I seriously respect what you've done. I've learned so much by you being on the Mouthwash Show. If you were, hypothetically, theoretically, going to commit election fraud, where do you find the weakest spots? And do you think that, something in Knox County would be much harder to commit fraud than, say, a big city in Georgia? A big city like Georgia.
It's
just a big city in Georgia.
It's getting harder and harder to commit election fraud or voter fraud here in the state of Indiana. It's not impossible. Nothing widespread, in my opinion, can happen. I think I mentioned last time in 2020, I did have 1 case of voter fraud here in Knox County. Had a gentleman attempt to vote 3 times. He was actually successful in voting twice. I was able to, determine that right off the bat. However, His second vote counted because the poll workers didn't challenge him. So there was no basis to remove that vote from the machine. But I was able to document everything he did, put pencil to paper. I mentioned before, prior to being a clerk, I've been a licensed private investigator. So I was able to put everything in a written format that even an attorney could understand, presented it to my prosecutor, and they went after it. I think we would see more cases of voter fraud prosecution in Indiana if some of these other prosecutors would actually go after them. But election laws they're just different. There's exceptions to almost every election law except for ones that don't have it, and they don't understand the election laws, or it's not glamorous enough for them to go after. But any system that involves humans can be prone to errors, and that's the reason why this gentleman was able to vote twice in my county back in 2020, is because that was the last election we used the old-fashioned paper poll books. The poll clerk, relatively new, she didn't see on the side of the poll book that this person had already voted early, and didn't get challenged, and that's how the second vote came through.
Is he allowed to vote anymore?
He has not since then. I keep tabs on the guy, but
well, I just mean like legally though. Were any like?
So he was convicted of a felony, level 6. Now, by my count, he committed 9 level 6 felonies and 2 A misdemeanors overall. But they charged him simply with one charge of voting more than once. He was sentenced to 1.5 years time served. So with time served, it's less than a slap on the wrist, to be honest with you. And after a year, if he kept his nose clean, which would have been last May, it goes down to a misdemeanor.
Oh, so it's not a lifetime felony, so he can buy a gun or whatever now.
No,
as
long as you serve your time. If you serve your time, if you're convicted of a felony and you serve your time, you can re-register to vote. Like if you serve 5 years in prison, then you got a year of work release, you can re-register to vote while you're in work release, because technically your debt to society has already been paid.
But yeah, even if it's for voter fraud?
Even for voter fraud. Now, I went last year to try to have some sentencing enhancement on voter fraud convictions. I feel like they should be disenfranchised for a period of 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
But I got all kinds of pushback from the state house and from, Democrat entities saying, well, they've already, been found guilty and you're just wanting to pile on to them.
No, I want to clear up one thing. Right? Hey, Brad, hold on one second. I just want to clear up one thing about voting. So if you're a felon, if you're in prison that's the only time you can't vote, if you're actually in prison, right?
That's correct. Once you
so when a felon gets out, they can vote.
You're disenfranchised during your incarceration, but not while you're, waiting to be sentenced, or if you're in work release or any kind of halfway house probation, you're free to re-register to vote at that point in time.
Okay. Yeah. Cause when I go out and I ask somebody, are you registered to vote? Oh, I can't vote. I'm a felon. Well, no. I don't see them in jail. So I tell them, I said, I don't think that's true. I don't want to tell somebody misinformation. Okay, no, Brad, go ahead. I hear you up there.
I actually have another question though, for a couple of them, but one that I kind of like is, why does Diego Morales visit other countries, to learn about their voting? And like, honestly, like what, take him out of it, but like what would any Secretary of State learn from visiting other countries and observing that?
I can't really answer that question for you.
Quit smiling like that, though.
I followed that election a little bit. It was kind of had some issues, similar to what they're trying to do here, removing candidates from the ballot at the last minute. A lot of controversy involved with that election, but I don't know what I would gather from observing in another country. I mean, another state. Yes and no. Every state, we have federalism here. It's up to each state on how they conduct their own elections. And it's interesting to me to learn how other states do that. In 21, my wife and I were fortunate enough to go to Hawaii. And instead of spending time on the beach, I looked up the top election official there in Honolulu, and I spent an hour and a half talking shop with him while my wife was just
you were romantic.
I love vacations like that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, like Iowa has these caucuses. Do you think that would be anything that, I mean, our system seems pretty set in stone. Do you think that would be anything that would work here in Indiana? And I mean, it would work anywhere, but I would think that would be somewhat popular because we are seeing less and less people vote. Here in Marion County from 2018 to 2022, we had 80,000 less voters in Marion County. And we had just 26% show up for our last election, which was not very, I mean, that's only about 1 in 4. So would you think that maybe how would we get people more interested and intrigued in voting if you're in there arguing with somebody at a caucus or however they do it? I mean, would you think that might be something that we'd look
I
at?
think we'd have even lesser or lower turnout because it'd be a 1 day or a couple hour event as opposed to the 28 days of early voting we have here in Indiana. So I feel like that would decrease the numbers.
Okay.
I haven't. If you want to increase voter turnout, I got a suggestion for you. If you know anybody at State House, so currently you pay your property taxes. They're due May 10th, November 10th every year. That always falls between 2 and 8 days after an election. Well, let's adjust the date that you pay your property taxes. So let's make the final day you can pay your property taxes the Friday before our election days. The highest turnout you see on people paying their taxes is in that last week that they can pay their taxes. So you have a bunch of upset people in the courthouse paying their taxes. They're going to be more likely to walk on across the street or walk down the hall and go ahead and vote early. I think that would increase early voting turnout by 5% right there.
Yeah. Seeing how
get reelected as an assessor, but I think it'd increase the turnout a little bit.
Yeah, seeing that they're all incumbents, I think that they're never going to. That's like voting on a pay decrease. So you know how that would. But how about this? I just heard that Vivek Ramaswamy came out and said that we need to take a whole day off for voting. What do you think about that?
No, I'd be in favor of that.
That seems like it'd be a good deal because it does. I've worked for. I've been campaigned for myself and I campaigned for my wife this time, and it does seem like it's a mad rush at the end, and maybe have the polls open until 8. It just seems like there's just not. We have early voting, I know, and that's very convenient. It just seems like it just takes the fun out of it. I'd like to see it all, happen at once. Do you think that the 28 days is too long of a period to vote early?
Especially in a municipal election cycle, the first 2 weeks of early voting is dead slow. It's I did the math this last election I had here, and the first few days it was costing taxpayers like $100 a vote, just based upon the hourly wages of my poll workers and the turnout. I think there'd be too much pushback to try to lessen the time frame. I mean, if I was in charge and I had absolute power, I'd cut it down to 2 weeks, just because
2 weeks, yeah.
I know that there's not that much turnout in the first 2 weeks of an early voting period.
Yeah, maybe the presidential years would be at it. You would need that because I know that it was, obviously we had the most votes in the history of the world last time.
And in Indiana, like during the municipal election cycle, we are free. Well, by unanimous vote of your election board, you can decrease the early voting period. And I know a lot of counties cut it down to 2 weeks or even 1 week during this municipal election this last year. But I kept mine the full 28 days because I didn't want anybody screaming voter suppression.
Yeah, you'll get that on occasion,
Yeah.
especially when you don't have too many of the one side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and put a banner up here, and this is a little public service announcement here. The Twitter or X, whatever you call it now, the live feed works on here. I've not seen one person comment, and I actually put out a thing there that the first person that commented on the X that came through the show, I would give them a T-shirt. But so far, I've not seen that. So we'll just wait and see what happens if somebody can comment through there. I did test it, and I was able to do that. So let's do this. Let's go with the polling that we did here. So I asked a question on here. Let me see what the question was. Hold, please, while I looked that question up. I wasn't on that one. It was on People Over Politics. So I asked a poll about, do you think that the election, the way we do elections is fair and honest? Maybe that's how it was. And the selections were ironclad, meaning it's 100% good, might have some issues, corrupt, or we need audit availability and not sure. So on the Facebook for ironclad, we had 5%. On Twitter, we had 4%. Might have some issues, Facebook 20%, 9% on Twitter. Corrupt, we had 32% Facebook. The skeptics on Twitter said 46%. Corrupt, we need audit availability, 42% Facebook, 41% Twitter, pretty close. Not sure 1%, 0%. So, and then we had 32 voters on Facebook, and 22 was, I think, our highest we've ever gotten on Twitter. So, pretty decent cross section of what's going on. I think Facebook may have a little more right-leaning people in it, but we have all types on here. Hey, we lost somebody.
Well, I was like, okay, I have a question.
I'll put you out there then till we get
Well,
our
no,
guy
but-
back.
What does the like the Facebook crowd when they say that crap, I forgot what John, what did they say? There was something about the
Their highest number was corruption, and the other one that was 46%, and then 41 was we need to be able to audit it. So I think
okay, the audit. Like, what is that? Like, so am I expected to publicly have to release what I voted for or who I voted for?
See, I don't know how that would work, but I would think that you would be able to say, okay, we have 800 votes for this guy, 600 votes for that guy. Somebody needs to be able to go back and see if those are all, to make sure those are all legitimate votes. It's like, David, let's put David came back on here.
Sorry, I lost my audio there and I couldn't figure out how to reset it, so I just left and came back.
Well, that's right. That's how we do it here.
Okay.
Yeah. We just got, and our technology was getting better. But at the start of my shows, it seems like it was really lagging. So hopefully I came through okay on that first part, because I'm watching I'm like 10 seconds behind of what I'm saying, but I've learned that it somehow catches up. So anyway, did you catch the polls there? Did you catch that?
I know the gist of it. We talked about it before we went on there,
Okay.
but I didn't get
Yeah.
it all.
So Brad was asking, being able to audit the vote. So I just would think that would be able to go back. I mean, you caught somebody voting twice, trying to vote 3 times. How would that work if we were to put in an audit capability?
Well, it depends on what your definition of an audit is. Currently we have a voluntary audit program, post-election audit system here. And some people complain that it's only a sampling. It really is. And to do more than that, then you get into a recount. And there's legal procedures to allow for recount. So we can't just do a 100% recount of every election. We can do a sampling. And the intent of that is to potentially identify issues with the way that you're tabulating your vote with that sampling there. I volunteered to do post-election audits already. A week and a half ago, I participated in 2 different recounts. Actually, I had a recount here in Vincennes, and then I was named to a recount commission over in the city of Jasper. So I did the Jasper one a week ago Friday, and then I had one in Vincennes on Monday. The Jasper one was decided by 2 votes. We did the recount, and election night results were confirmed to the vote. We did the recount here in Vincennes on a race that was decided by 4 votes. And again, election nights were confirmed to the exact vote. It was a really interesting process. I never did one of those before. Came to find out that there are no actual written guidelines for local recounts. You're just kind of left to your own to do those. The state recount commission has their own guidelines. The state board of accounts has their own guidelines, but those are for higher offices. So, I read those. I knew how my elections are ran. I knew what systems we use. So basically, I just wrote my own set of rules and presented it to the other recount commission members. Said, "Do you have anything to add?" And of course, they didn't. So we signed it and moved on. And both recounts, start to finish, took an hour and a half.
Oh, that's not that bad. So Slick Witty wants to know, how do you do a sampling if you're just going to do a sampling of one, not a recount per se?
It's randomized. When you do the post-election audits, the entity called VSTOP, they're a Ball State University Voter System Technical Oversight Program. They come down. We run the VVPAT tapes, and they have some formula where I say, okay, we're going to look at the 14th ballot and we'll document who got what votes. And then we'll look at the 28th ballot, and it's just all randomized. And, there's no way we know who cast those votes. but they can cycle through the VVPAT machine tape and get to the 14th vote, the 28th vote, wherever it calls for. And, we know how many votes were cast, and they do a small percentage of that. And it's just dumb luck. And they hopefully, you do X amount of them and it comes up the same percentage of the votes that the candidates got per their election night reporting.
Now, Adam Harvey has a question here. He wants to know, did these recounts involve any checking of signatures or, those type of things, or is it just straight counting votes? I think that's what he's saying.
We can't compare signatures on the applications and the ballots in a recount because at that point in time, the ballot cards themselves have already been separated from the envelopes and the applications. So you have to trust that the clerks, the election staff did that already. We do that 3 different ways here in Knox County. As soon as we get the ballot in, we compare them probably twice in my office. And then on election day, when you have your bipartisan teams opening the ballots, they're rechecking at that point in time. So the only signatures, initials that we can check during a recount are on the absentee ballots. They need to have bipartisan initials, Republican and Democrat. So we check to make sure that the ballots were valid to use and had the bipartisan initials on them. And the purpose of those initials is to prove that there were no votes cast on that ballot before it was mailed to the voter.
Yeah. So, it does seem like, and I'm going to shift gears here a little bit with, I had asked you this question before because in my wife's election, I'm going to go ahead and put a picture up here and talk. And I know you're not the election board, but you are the chief election guy in Knox County. And we had a situation up here where we had some people, as you can see, there's no campaigning behind this point, and there they are. And there's the guy in the yellow is actually the poll worker. And these folks, this is the lady on the right there is Lisa's candidate's mom and family in there. And it took us 3 hours to get them out. We had to get our attorney for the GOP there. We had to get the election guy out there. And then when they got out, they blocked the doors for quite a while. And she taped something on one of the campaign things on the mailbox. And I believe the post office is going to fine her.
John, were they vocal? Like, as you went?
Oh, they were.
And if so, which one was the most? Because I have a guess.
Yeah,
but I want you to tell me first.
The one in the blue was just really railing on us.
Wait, was it the one in the front? In the
yeah, that's her. Yeah. That's his mom. So you would think they would know better than that. And those are the type of things. So, David, do you run into stuff like that? I mean, I know you. It's just the first time I've seen something like this. And if somebody's in there on accident, okay, but when they're just refusing to leave, they told us to call the police, and it's like, well, you just think they're going to leave. You don't want to,
I have a pretty loud bark, so I haven't run into people just outright refusing. Part of the kit that I send with all my poll workers to every voting location or vote center is a 50-foot length of rope. So we measure out from the door going into the room where the voting takes place, 50 foot out. And I just keep them there. Now, every now and then I'll see a poll watcher or a supporter of a candidate get a little closer. And I just simply go up to them and quietly and politely tell them to move it on back, and if they refuse, well, I've taken action before. In 2020, I had a candidate that kept on moving the sign closer and closer and closer. And he refused to move it. So I just simply removed it for him, threw it in the back seat of my truck and told him he'd have a sign back after the election.
So yeah, you just
win?
Sort of take, that's.
I'm sorry, what?
Did he win?
He ended up winning. He did.
Oh,
it's amazing how many.
So did the other guy. So basically, cheaters do win.
Well, it's amazing how many people show up to the polls not knowing who they're going to vote for. And if they see a candidate there in their mind, well, I didn't know who I was going to vote for, but there he is. He's working, so he must be a hard worker, so I'm going to vote for him. So, if you're a candidate, you got to work that early voting, especially those Saturdays, because it's shooting fish in a barrel a lot of times.
Yeah, my experience with the polling out there was they knew who they're going to vote for. It was like, head down, I'm headed in. We're going to go vote. So I mean, and it probably makes a difference if they don't have as much advertising out. And I imagine in some of the smaller rural counties, a lot of word of mouth is out there. But as far as large campaigns like the mayor's race we had here, that was about a $20 million race, if you didn't know who the candidates were, you were asleep. You were Rip Van Winkle trying to figure that out. So hold on, I'm gonna do some Magic 8-Ball stuff here on our questions. Let me get my glasses on. So Magic 8-Ball, do you think that our elections are ironclad safe? Let's see, it says most likely. There you go. That's a good one. So how about we need audit availability? Don't count on it. All right. How about we're going to go with the last one, corrupt. Let's see what that says. Most likely. So, maybe, I mean,
that's a Democratic 8-Ball.
Yeah. The GPT chat told us last week, do not rely on the 8-Ball for major decisions. So
I'll tell you what that 8-Ball really is. It's a Trump artifact from one of his casinos in Atlantic City. You know how the dice are weighted to always come up a certain way?
How does a casino go out of business? That should tell you all you need to know about Trump. I'm just saying, it's like
we have a lot of things that should tell us everything we should know about Trump.
Yeah, there's a lot of breadcrumbs out there on this thing. And hey, don't laugh. Well, he may be president again. You just never know. And then he'll come get us all because he's going to go against his political enemies and things and whatnot. So anyway, Brad, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask David, like a hypothetical, like say a sitting president doesn't agree with the results of the election and he decides to try to sow some, confusion amongst voters and say that it was rigged, even though everybody that works for him that he appointed says it was not rigged. How does like the confidence of the country kind of bounce back from that, or does it? In said hypothetical equation that doesn't actually happen right now?
Well, everybody has a right to their opinion. The First Amendment there, and opponents of President Trump will quick to say that all these cases were thrown out related to election fraud, and that's not the exact truth. A lot of courts just punted, saying they don't have standing to rule on this and that. I can only attest to how elections are ran here in Indiana. Now, I saw things in other states where governors, the secretary of states, they circumvented their own state constitutions by changing the rules, by allowing this or not allowing that. Because you using the pandemic as an excuse to do all these different things here. But I don't really want to get into other states because that's not my game.
But we do. We want to get into other states. Well, yes, we do.
Well, okay, but so say say Biden beat Trump here and people wanted to, object to the certification of the election, but not like whether or not Greg Pence was elected or whether or not Todd Young was elected or Mike Braun was elected. Like, why would the integrity of the election be suspect for the president, but not representatives and senators in those same states?
Well, here's my opinion on that here. Trump was such a polarizing figure and still is. You love him, you hate him. There's no gray area with him at all, as opposed to our governor. He had widespread appeal. You had Democrats that appreciated the way he handled the pandemic. You have your establishment Republicans, your regular Republicans that are going to vote for whoever has an R by their name. So that explains why those candidates received more votes than President Trump did here in 2020.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, or did I dance around it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
We have no dancing.
I try again there.
This is the no dance zone. You've heard of the no spin zone. We have the no dance zone. So Slick Woody has a question here. Wichita, Kansas has a libertarian mayor because the elections are non-bipartisan. Wait a second. Is that even a word? Is that like jumbo shrimp? Can we do that here? I mean, we got school boards that are bipartisan, non-bipartisan, or non-partisan. I think is the right word he's looking for there. It's not jumbo shrimp. So do you think that would work here?
Well, we see a lot of smaller communities in the state of Indiana where the candidates all sign up as independent just so they don't have to declare R or D. Makes it a little screwy when they leave office in the middle of the term because the other board members are free to appoint them, and it's just kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to smaller towns. So, I mean, anybody can run as an independent currently. It's just
Well,
you
that
give up
little
too many
signature,
votes. You give up
that
too many
signature
votes.
thing. Let's talk about that a little bit. This signature thing. Now, if you want to get on the ballot as governor, senator, or president, you have to get the 500 signatures in each congressional district, which is 9 of them.
Unless you're Todd Young.
Oh well, Lucy knows all. You're familiar with Todd Young, and he,
Yep, I'm a couple inches taller than him, except for when he shows up to the debates and he's got his heel lifts in and his platform shoes.
Yeah, more shoes. Well, hey, I saw a thing about Trump having some kind of pads under his feet, so maybe that's a thing. I don't know on that. But so, what was the question again?
Pads in his feet or pads in his pants?
You're talking about signatures for an independent.
Yeah, that was the question. Lucy derailed me.
Like, yeah,
It's like, hey, I've had a hard Christmas. I had grandkids climbing all over me. It was it's too much fun. Now back to reality. But yes, the signature thing. 2% of the vote of the Secretary of State. Let's talk about that for a second, because I've had to do this before, and it's very interesting. So if you want to go for the Senate or the governor, I believe, to run as an independent, it's like 30,000 signatures. Now, how is that fair to 4,500 signatures by a party that'll go out and get them for you? How do we? And I think a lot of these rules are from Ross Perot, because Ross Perot was fairly easy before Ross Perot to get on the ballot as independent. I don't know about other states, but as far as I know, Indiana may be the second hardest state to get behind Mississippi to get on the ballot as a candidate in the higher offices. So what do you think about the signature process? I mean, I enjoyed it. I wish mine would have turned out better, but I enjoyed the task of it.
Well, I mean, for higher office, it would be difficult to get that many signatures, but on a county level, like in Knox County, I had an independent candidate run for county commissioner in 22, and I seem to recall, I can't remember the exact number. It was either 45 or 72 signatures she had to get countywide. So it's not that hard on a local level, county level, but higher offices they are, the larger the district and the more signatures are required.
So here's, we have very, very smart listeners and viewers on this thing. False. Michigan is the hardest by far. So there you go. That, all I know is Indiana's no fun. With 2% of the vote of the Secretary of State in your district, to me, it would be 2% or make up a percentage of what office you're running for would make more sense to me. But I don't make the rules. I don't make up the signature sheets. I don't do any of that. And I know if you were Secretary of State, you would make that signature sheet a little more clearer than it is now. And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's a little confusing there. And I try to open it up and make it actually easier for candidates to get their signatures. We have the indianavoters.com where you can register to vote. You can request your absentee ballots. It wouldn't be that hard to configure that where you could electronically sign a petition for a candidate. I don't think it'd open it up for widespread fraud where robo signatures could occur because, you have to log in using your voter registration credentials to sign in there. But I think that'd be a way to allow more ballot access for candidates.
Yeah. Well, it was, and a lot of the things, one of the things that is on that, and I know that we've talked about this before, is the date of birth. You put your date of birth on there, and there's actually a statute that says you are not to make public Social Security numbers, date of birth, certain things, yet we're doing that on this sheet. But a lot of people say, well, that's how we can tell. That makes it faster for us to find them. But I mean, with AI and the stuff we have today, come on, can we not, get rid of the birth date and the personal information?
I disagree with you on that.
I knew you were gonna.
The date of birth is necessary. It's a form of identification. We can have, 15 people in a community with the same name, and sometimes we have 2 people, 3 people with the same name living in the same household. So we need a date of birth to be able to search it. Plus, we can search for a registered voter by date of birth. If they have a chicken scratch signature or handwriting, I can't read what they wrote, but I could read the numbers easier and I can figure it out that way. So
Yeah. The same answer you gave me last time. I keep having you on the show. I'll break you down. One of these days, we're going to get that fixed. It's like, I think they need a really big signature block. You just sign it, and that's pretty much it. But I agree. but the signatures, really, it should be, I don't know why you'd have to even be registered to vote. I mean, if my neighbor wants me on the ballot and they don't vote, they should be disenfranchised for, that part of things. Why does it matter? If it's a person's a person.
Well, would you want people coming over from Illinois to sign your opponent's form to let them
Not
run?
Illinois, but Michigan, I would. Not Illinois.
Right. Okay. So
well, I mean, but they'd have to live here, but not, on that part. I mean, you're still making them put their address and their birthday. So
I mean, it's not hard to get registered to vote in Indiana. Basically.
Apparently, it is in Mars Hill because nobody
don't
does.
Be in jail and have a pulse, and that's it. You could be adjudicated as incompetent in a court of law and still be a registered voter and actively participate in our elections.
I'm allegedly incompetent. I've not been tried, or
you can still vote and you can still run.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's obvious by a lot of the people that are in office. But wow, that's interesting thing. So I'm going to get going here a little bit. And how do we get more people interested in voting? Because it does seem like people are just really, my vote, does my vote count? At the very end of my introduction here, does my vote count? A lot of people feel like it doesn't count. Either it's from the gerrymandering, or it's already decided. But our elections here in Marion County almost went down to the numbers of what they were predicted to do. I mean, it was 60-40, pretty much Democrats, 60% Democrats and 40% Republicans, except for the southern part of our county here. So how do we get more people interested?
Boy, I don't know. That's the $1 million question right there. I mean, how do you overcome the voter apathy?
I got $1 million answer.
Okay.
Right. Go ahead.
And it's exactly what Janet said in the chat. Have fair elections with honest politicians. I don't think you're going to get fair elections, and I don't think you're going to get honest politicians. There's just simply too much at stake. I mean, here I am, little old mom of 10 kids, and I could totally tie a knot in the behind of of all politicians around me, but I can't compete against $55 million in 2016 that was spent by my two opponents. I can't compete against the $90 million that was spent in 2018. And why are you spending $55 million for a job that pays $175,000 a year? I mean, you put value into a system, you get value out of a system. And that's because the fraud is worth it. And no one gave me, $50,000 or $100,000 or $1 million because they know that I would not commit fraud and make sure that they get laws passed to,
enrich their buddies. That's right.
Thank
you.
Yeah. And so it's not going to happen. So we know it's theater. The cat is out of the bag. The average voter, the average citizen knows it's theater. And I respect most of all the people that simply refuse to participate, because even by participating in the system, we're giving it relevance, we're giving it credence, we're making it legitimate by participating in it. So even though I'm a former political candidate, I would say the smartest thing that we can all do is simply stay home and not support the system at all. What if they had an election for evil 1 and evil 2 and nobody showed up to affirmatively vote for evil?
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work.
I don't trust anyone else not to vote.
Yeah, that's right. This is like the game of chicken that we play. So how about we give people a little bit of money off their taxes? You get like a tax credit for voting. I'm ready to do anything. Maybe we give them some fresh fruit or something. I mean, maybe we got to give some incentive for. Maybe we could give out mouthwash T-shirts. I don't know. I mean, that might turn.
I think those incentives are known as bribes. That might give you a
felony. But I mean, you give everybody that votes. I mean, it's not like you don't give. I'm not going to give Brad a fruit bowl and a new Lincoln Continental with the suicide doors, which I'm not going to give you different things. Yeah, see, you didn't get it though, Brad, did you? Yeah. Lucy got it because she's going to vote for me. But you know what I'm saying? What can we do? We got to put a carrot at the end of this stick.
Well, wait, but John, you guys were talking about the voter apathy and how can we increase voters, and I feel like we're kind of blaming voters for apathy when it's where is anything that we should be confident in? Where is the pull for somebody to go vote? I mean, we're hearing the same thing from every side, and we all feel that our vote doesn't matter. So we're all, there's that aspect to it too. I feel like whatever the institutions are right now, they're all failing just because we don't believe in them to do the right thing at all. And that's why we don't vote.
Yeah, that is the question. 1 in 4 people voted for the administration for Indianapolis. So that means 3 other people walking around here don't care or feel like their vote doesn't matter. So I really think that we should give out free chickens in every pot. That would do it. And
free pot for chickens? What was
yeah,
that?
well, chicken pot pie, chicken pot pie.
Indiana,
and then we're going to vote on March 14th, 3.1475
April
697.
14th? Oh, yeah, I got it. Pie.
March, like
Yeah,
Pie Day.
Sorry.
Turkey
I really
pie.
like David's idea of having everybody show up, and be in the correct and appropriate mood for voting.
Yeah, if they had the day off, everybody'd be in a better mood. And pay your taxes the same day you vote. That's a great.
Pay my taxes? I don't have any taxes. That's
But
all
Lucy,
taxes are theft.
construct.
Anyway,
Taxation is theft. Yes,
taxes
Brad,
are
you
theft.
beat it
David
to
Sheldon, do you agree that taxes are theft? He wants to run for future political office, so he's going to refrain. As his campaign manager,
I appealed my property
answering
taxes to the state board, and I won last year. So I'm not a real big fan of the current system, that's for sure. There definitely needs to be property tax reform. I don't necessarily have an answer for you right now, but I know the system is a little more than just
a
lot of people are hurting.
I was thinking about this property tax thing today because, when you buy something, it becomes your property. Your body itself is your property. So, if I buy a pack of gum and I pay sales tax, that's become my property and no one continues to tax me on it, right? If I buy a can of beans and it sits in my larder because I'm a prepper, nobody's taxing me on that a year from now, even though I still have the property. So why is it that real estate becomes a specific type of property that we continue to tax year after year after year? Even though you've bought it, you paid for it, it's become your property. And similarly, why does anybody put up with a tax on labor? I mean, the whole reason that you put a tax on something, high cigarette taxes and sin taxes, is to suppress people wanting to do that. So when you put a tax on labor, of course, you suppress people wanting to provide labor. I own my body. It takes an immense amount of expenses to keep this thing going. Why in the world am I being taxed on that? It's my property.
It's double taxation. And plus the death tax is another one but you're not around to complain about it when you're dead. So that's an easier one to tax on there.
And then you have the personal property tax too. You have to pay. Like I have a side business. I've been doing upholstery work for about 30 years now, so I have to keep track of all my upholstery equipment, my sewing machines, and everything. Now, fortunately, I'm a small enough operation where the value of my equipment's under $25,000, so I'm exempt. But if you have business property in excess of $25,000, you have to report and pay taxes on that as well.
You got to count it, and it's not worth it. So. How about this idea, Dave? Are you familiar with your assessor right down there? How about you run an assessor that says, "Hey, I'm gonna reassess everybody's house at 20% less than what it was." Is there anybody that can stop you from doing that? I mean, I know it's a fair market thing, but who's going to come in and say, "Hey, this market's not fair"?
Who's going to complain if he lowers everybody's property taxes by 20%?
Now I start to get
council.
Start to get some people on my side here. I just think that we need to get that going.
I gotta insert myself into this. I gotta insert myself here because 20%, like that's so freaking weak. You can't be just a little bit pregnant. This is why I'm laughing at Susan Crouch right now, or Van Crouch, whatever freaking name is. Axe the tax. It's like, woman, we know you're not going to do this. You're not sincere about it. Like you've been in a position to actually advocate for people keeping their money and you've never done so before. But suddenly, it's axe the tax. And she isn't even
glasses
smart
make
enough.
her believable. So
that's what it is. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. The glasses.
Yeah.
I thought she was a lumberjack myself, so I don't know. I mean, maybe I missed the message.
Well, it reminds me of when Joe Donnelly got really mad at the end of our last debate because, I brought up his Veep, his commercial where he was going to do the lumberjack thing. And I'm like, yeah, the trees voted for the axe because its handle was made of wood. So it thought it was one of them.
That's good.
He got mad.
So you had Donnelly, was it Donnelly and Young and you? Who was in that one?
So 2016, it was former Governor Bai
Okay.
and Todd Young, and then
And Todd Young.
2018, yeah, it was Braun and Donnelly. And out of the two,
I should have
um,
given you my campaign slogan. I was going to say, Lucy, brains over brawn.
oh gosh, yes,
That'd be a good one
that's
for you.
smart. Well,
Just
I've got
saying.
beauty and brains, so Braun's just.
Well, I know. That's why I
I'm
stuttered a
not going
little
to
bit. I didn't know
cuss.
which one to use. So it's Beauty and the Beast for the other guy. But it's here, Lucy. Instead of not voting, why don't you just vote for the least funded person? We need to get everybody to vote for the least funded person,
Well,
and that'll work.
that would send me into a philosophical tizzy as a libertarian because everyone is the least funded because we're all paying with fiat.
Okay, so that's not even. That's like, well, I guess it's all sort of imaginary money at this point. So, but all right, well, let's wind this up. I'm trying to keep the show to an hour because to be sensitive to our guests. David, you've been most kind to come on in replacement. I'm still going to try to get my other guest on at some point. He's just so far undercover, I couldn't get him. So holidays and all that, you know how it goes. So anybody want to have a finishing question here? We've had some pretty good questions in the chat tonight. I appreciate that, viewers.
I'm going to come back and say, David, you didn't actually answer my question of theoretically, how would you commit voter fraud or how could it be committed?
Okay.
So could I at least get you to
He
admit that
can't
it is
contribute to
possible?
the crime, Lucy. He can.
Yeah, Lucy's trying to figure out how to do this.
No, I just know that they've had 12-year-olds like hack these machines live. So Diebold sucks.
Not in Indiana because our machines are not hooked up to the internet.
Right. That was Florida. It was Florida.
Okay. So right
It's
now,
always Florida.
the weak area would be the mail-in absentee ballots. You have an older parent, you could request a ballot form to be mailed to their house. You open their mail, you take care of your parents, and you could simply fill out their ballot, And as long as you get your parent to sign that, or even if you have power of attorney, you could sign the ballot envelope for them, but then you have to sign your name at the bottom. So that's a weak area there. That's why I'm just not a fan of the mail-in absentee ballots. But again, you got 12, 13 permissible
and if
reasons
you're
on why to do that.
And one of those things that play into that is if you answer your mail at all and even admit to where you live, or if you're just a Senate candidate that wants to, dodge your mail.
Hey, we might have him on.
I can't
on
let
the
that
show
go.
next week.
Sorry.
Okay. So what? Let's ask that question. What about John Rust? What do you think about that deal? He sort of one step in this thing. Do you think they're going to get him on appeal, or you think John Rust is going to make it on the ballot? I'm going to have him on next week, so I'm going to tell him what you said. So go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, you have the Indiana Supreme Court hearings not until February 12th. I don't know if anything can be done between then and now. Kind of opens up a can of worms for anybody and everybody right now. I don't like how he kind of glosses over the fact that he hasn't voted in the last 3 elections, only mentions 1 or 2. And his reasons for not voting was very thin, in my opinion. I just feel like he just woke up one day and decided.
I know why he didn't vote. It's because he's a mother hen and he has 17 million eggs a day to sit on and hatch. At least they're not coming out of the back end of himself.
You don't know that, Lucy. You don't know that.
That's true. That's true. He could be a trans ovarian. Trans ovarian with an avian. I'm sorry.
I feel his
it's
argument
too late.
is not really valid that he wasn't able to run. He could have run as an independent. You invited him to run as a libertarian when we were on with him a month or 2 ago. His claim that 80% of Hoosiers can't run for office is I don't even know where he came up with that number at. There are 4 people in the state of Indiana by the name of John Rust that are currently registered to vote. 3 of the 4 have a voting history to allow them to run as either Republican or Democrat. The only one of those 4 John Rust in the state of Indiana that doesn't have a vote history is the one who's trying to run for Senate.
Well, that's how it works, isn't it? It's like 75% of all statistics are made up. So I'm just going to throw that out there. What about dead people? How about, absentee? How many dead people vote in Knox County?
This may surprise you coming from me. It depends on how you cast your vote. I feel like if you're able to drag yourself into a polling location for early voting and cast your vote, your intention was pretty clear. If you voted 2 weeks before the election in person and then you happen to die, I feel like that vote should count. I feel like if you're armed forces, overseas voter, defending our country, and you die in a line of duty or die, you know, while you're there, that vote should count. But just the general mail-in ballots, we don't know who actually filled those out. So there needs to be a different classification between early voting and absentee voting. Right now, it's all considered absentee voting.
Right.
So we need to have a legal definition of both of those forms of voting, and then I feel like we can separate them out. But I feel like if you vote in person early, or if you're overseas uniformed, those votes should count whether you pass away before election day or not.
Yeah, but Civil War veterans probably not going to count those, right? If you got a Civil War veteran in there, that would be a stretch for sure. All right, Brad, I'm going to give you the last question. We're going to conspiracy. David, are you going to stick around for conspiracy after this? I mean, you don't have to have one. You can just laugh.
I'll watch from afar. I may not participate.
Okay. Well, that was just now. Everybody listen up. That was just a precursor to David running for office later. So don't think anything about him not being a good sport here, okay?
I don't have a hat. I forgot to bring a hat again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, now he really is stalking like a politician with some excuses of why he can't answer the question. Okay. All right, that's good. So, Brad, one more question. Give him a tough question. You got one?
Well, yeah, I looked up your Ballotpedia profile, and one of the things I wanted to ask, you talked about, you knew firsthand struggles of finding poll workers and obtaining funding. What are some things that you are looking that the state can do, or is it a federal issue that there's not enough funding, and what can be done to get more poll workers too, I guess?
So the funding to pay for your poll workers is on your county level as part of your budget process you go through every year. When I went to a vote center system in 22, I decreased the number of poll workers I actually needed. I went from 28 unique voting locations down to 13 vote centers. So I cut the number of poll workers in half. I was able to then effectively double their pay. I wanted to make it more attractive to them to want to work a 14-hour day, need to make it so they make more money than they would flipping burgers at McDonald's. So that's what I try to do to get more poll workers. I fully utilize the Hoosier Hall Pass program here in Indiana. I make presentations to my local high schoolers, and I take the voting machines, the voting equipment with me. I have it in demo mode. I have a sample ballot on there. Sorry, not even a sample ballot. It looks like the real ballot that they're going to be voting on that year, but this machine is not used in the election itself. So whatever votes they cast on that machine at the schools, of course, is not going to count on election night. But, we can pay those students as young as 16-year-olds to be poll workers. And an added benefit of having them in there as well, because they can be what's called the poll clerks, which is the lowest level. They're the ones that check the voters in, that check the IDs, help operate the e-poll books. And being a younger generation, more adept at this newer technology, they can more quickly troubleshoot any kind of connection issues with cables or whatever. But they work out great, and most of them come back again and again after their first experience as being a poll worker, because they gain an interest in our election process themselves, and hopefully not only will they be poll workers, but they'll be a regular voter for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I think that could be a good way to get people interested in voting, because I know when I went and was checking signatures for absentee, I got a greater appreciation for how the system works. And, I know in Indiana that it's pretty hard to cheat. I mean, it really is. You might be able to get one or two by somewhere, but not in my opinion, not enough to sway an election. So anybody listening to this show in Indiana, be assured that our system is good enough to get the job done. It may not be 100% correct, but we can hold our head up high that our state does it right. We don't have no hanging chads. We don't have no, other stuff that's going crazy, and that's good. So David, you're basically our go-to guy on this now. You've been on here twice to talk about it. And so we'll be reaching out to you again in the future if there's anything that comes up hanky-panky during this primary, or we're going to have a pretty interesting presidential election this year. I mean, we might have 500 million people vote. You just never know. And some of them from the Civil War. You just don't know. I mean, the South may rise again. You just don't know what's going to happen there. So we appreciate you coming on tonight. We're going to go to the conspiracy theory now. And I got a pretty decent one here. And I want to say right off the bat, I did use Chat GPT to help me with this, but I've been able to make it personal for the show. So David, again, thank you for coming on. And we look forward to going and voting. And hopefully this was educational to some folks and it'll help them have more faith in the system.
Let me just one last thing there. If you have questions about how your elections are ran in your county, go ahead and reach out to your county clerks. Please be mindful if it's the day before the election or whatnot. But if you ask them a nice question, they'll take the time to answer your question. I have a lot of questions come my way, and I invite the voters to come to my office. I'll show them how I do things, how we secure our elections there. So we all want everybody's vote to count. We all want it to be fair, accurate, safe, and secure.
Yep. And I would say this would be a good time to put a plug in there for, hey, go out and work at the polls.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That'll you'll learn out a lot more about that. And then if you can catch cheaters that are campaigning on the wrong side of the glass, you can help throw them out. All right, David, thank you for coming on. Hey, folks, it's time for the conspiracy theory. Get your hats out.
Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week.
Yeah, I really need to, let's see if I want to do it this way or this way. Oh, I like that way. That's good. All right. Yeah, I need to have a longer segue to that because I barely can get the right people off of the screen here. In fact, what do you got on your hat there? Brad, what's that say on there?
Oh, it's a
White
Sox
Sox.
hat.
You got the White Sox. That is a conspiracy all in itself. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to pick up much on my conspiracy night with this hat, the way the antennas are going, but I have to do a remodel on my hat here soon. So, well, I thought it was very good. David Shelton really knows his way around what's going on. Maybe we should send him down to Georgia, Pennsylvania, all these other places that are having troubles to fix up things. So,
but Georgia seemed okay,
just that one county, or Arizona had that one county, we'll see how that things go. But
Cyber Ninjas cleared that up, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. It's cyber something or other. We are in the conspiracy theory. Well, let me put the banner on in case somebody wants to ever run for office. They can't, use this against us. So, but okay, Lucy, what do you got? You got something for us?
Well, of course I do, because we've got the end of the year coming up, right?
End of the world, you mean?
Well, that too. The next time we all see each other here on the show, it's going to be 2024. So I know, right? So I'm making my predictions for 2024. Somebody posted on X. Remember, we're supposed to call it X now instead of Twitter. But somebody posted on X, Tucker Carlson's former colleague, apparently, a former employee or something. Anyway, there's this video going around of this woman that apparently works for the CIA. And she says that she's concerned about a black swan event. Well, let me translate that for you. False flag. So
okay, wait. What's false flag mean for us dummies out here in conspiracy land?
False flag means that you're being lied to about the event. So it doesn't mean that something didn't happen. It doesn't mean that real people didn't die. So for example, I would consider the Boston bombing to be a false flag event. Why? Not because bombs didn't go off and people actually died, but because it's provable that there were certain people that were highlighted in the media that were clearly actors. And same thing with Adam Lanza and Sandy Hook and the woman who was the same crisis actor in four different things.
How about Jesse Smollett?
That as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So
is that a false flag then? Okay, I got
well, no, I wouldn't say that Jesse Smollett was a false flag because there wasn't evidence of government involvement. That was just a guy that craved attention.
So January 6th, when they have people in there trying to instigate things or whatever, maybe that sort of the same
that was a guided tour where people were
Okay,
invited
yeah.
in by police officers. But we know
I
that it
know
was a
exactly
false
when
flag.
they crushed all the windows and then smashed them in, and then like
Well, yeah.
Well, you know what?
battering ramming.
Some of those people have provenly been Antifa actors, and they were not what I would consider to be a conservative patriotic American. But anyway, the point that I'm going to make on this is 2024 is an election year. It's going to be super interesting. We have people from the CIA. Remember, this is predictive programming. They tell us what they're going to do before they do it. So black swan meaning something that is so over the top that you would potentially not recover from it for many years. So you've got that going on, and also included in that conspiracy. And I think that a lot of people haven't read this, but I'm going to give a shout out to the YouTube show Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. So for those of you who are homesteaders that you watch Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, what Doug was showing is that there are a lot of apps that are updating right now. That you're agreeing to new terms of service, so they're updating their TOS. And T-Mobile is directly updating their TOS to say that if you, even in a private text message, use certain language that's inflammatory, hate speech, they had I think they called it shaft. So sex, hate, something, AFT,
All the fun
firearms,
stuff, pretty much.
tobacco. Yeah, all the good stuff, right? That you would be fined $500 a day. And this is for personal texts between you and your friends, you and family members. And so obviously if they intend to do that, then there's got to be a system for monitoring that. I will directly tell you that I worked for, AT&T/SBC Global back in the day. Back in the early 2000s, I worked in the building downtown. For those of you who don't know, the 240 North Meridian building that was AT&T was literally picked up in 1971, and they spun it on its own axis, and so it was moved about an inch a day. So I think it was the west door became the north door. I think they spun it clockwise. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning that is because I worked in that building. I know that there were floors in that building where there were computers behind chain link fences we were not able to get to. And even back in the 2000s and the 90s, all of your communications over your phone were being monitored, and certain keywords would, and I was there, I worked on it. I did computer translations. I worked on the systems that made the phone calls go from one place to another. So it's going to be super interesting because with AI, and them telling us there's going to be a black swan event. I think this is, and I'm not even going to say Democrats because, I don't think this is a Democrat Republican thing. This is an elitist cabal group of people who can raise the funds to make all of these things happen, right?
Okay,
The
so
election, to say that the election is going to be stolen is an understatement. And I'm not saying it's going to be stolen by Trump or stolen by Biden's people. It's stolen every single year because our votes just don't matter. Anyway, I'll stop rambling.
Yeah, I put it in the GPT chat, and it just pop, spits it right out. That's really wild. I don't know. This is, I know we did AI last week, and I'm just still sort of perplexed by the whole thing. But it makes you think about days gone back, like Watergate and different shenanigans they used to pull, JFK and all the people that got assassinated during that time. It makes you wonder about all this stuff that if Walter Cronkite came on the television and told you it was red, then it was red. Nowadays, somebody comes on the television and tells you it's red, you think, it ain't red. I'm sorry, I don't believe what you're telling me. But we used to take all that for gospel, and now you think about all this stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You think about, I just feel like I've been duped. I feel like they've been telling me stuff. Brad, what do you got for them?
But by the way, then how far back have you been duped? Like,
60 years.
No, we were duped from the very beginning. The Articles of Confederation going to the Constitution.
Thank
we
you.
were duped then.
Because we will always say that, like, oh, we were duped in the 60s and the 50s and stuff. But then it's like, if we try to challenge the founding fathers, we are met with, no. It wasn't them. Like, they weren't conspiracy.
Like one group of rich old white guys somehow has more integrity than another. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's poor old white guys because I can't say rich
Stop
old white.
attacking the
So
old
white.
rich white men, okay? Haven't they suffered
Yes.
enough?
The rich men above Richmond or whatever that song is and all that. So, that's a conspiracy in itself. I think that guy's secretly a Trump supporter, but no, that's a different conspiracy. What are
Well,
you?
he's a ginger, so he has no soul, right?
Ooh,
Wait, which one?
maybe the guy that
Rich,
sings that.
the singer.
The
I
singer.
just have to give him a hard time. I have lots of friends with red hair. Chris Spangle's probably going to like somehow hear this clip and be like,
Did you see he got whipped with a Hot Wheels track by Miss Sally or whatever his friend is?
Miss Pat.
Miss Pat, yeah. I'm like, dude, you are. She lit him up too.
Oh man, if you didn't grow up with getting beaten with a Hot Wheels track, you didn't even have a childhood.
Nah.
That has the guardrail in it. Like that thing hurts.
Yeah, and it you could whip it too.
Yeah.
Because
that's okay. I scattered the Legos around the house. I got them all back.
The old foot mines or whatever. So, Brad, what kind of conspiracy? I don't know if you can top that, but
no, I've just caught wind of a partnership between Lego and Lowe's. It's for parents who have like way too many Legos, and you can just bring them in tubs. And they will manufacture a shed out of Legos for you. Now it's in the early process. They have to figure out like how much they're actually going to cost. But yeah, it's basically just you're paying for. You already have the parts. You just got to pay for the labor. It's not going to be that much, and you have a nice little shed, little storage unit.
I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that's true. That's two true in a row. So. I can't wait to
get and if so, I get the credit. But
we didn't have Legos. We had. I'm so old. We had Lincoln Logs. Lucy, did you ever?
We loved Lincoln Logs, man.
Yeah, should I tell you what we used to do with Lincoln Logs?
Do tell us.
I had an older brother, and so and I was the baby of the family, so I guess we didn't have enough supervision. You ever seen like Barbie tied to a stick and the Lincoln Logs used to set the whole thing on fire?
That's roasting her over a fire.
Yeah, that sounds like two birds.
Like the Salem witch trials, right?
Oh
yeah, everybody knows. Yeah. That's another conspiracy. Barbie's actually a witch, so you could say that, and that would make Ken. Is he a warlock? Is that the opposite of a witch? A warlock? Is there what's a male witch called?
Like a wizard. I mean,
I think they're still witches. I think warlocks and all that are different things.
It's like a werewolf or whatever. Yeah. It's amazing how many superheroes we have. Speaking of superheroes, this is one that's going to come around here. So this is a conspiracy. It's called chemtrails. And some people believe that when the jets are flying in the air, you see those white streaks that are come out behind them. Those are called contrails, or they're like chemical trails, that's the government. They're putting out this, this chemical that's going to control the atmosphere. So, if they want climate change, they just fly more jets. And, some days you see a lot of those and some days you don't. So the government is trying to control, basically the weather, and who knows, they may be putting the coronavirus on you, whatever they need. They just
haven't you ever read the Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton?
Mm-hmm.
I have read that.
Like they have to take the virus up to a certain altitude to kill it, because it won't disperse, or like if it disperses at a certain altitude, then it'll mess up everybody. But if it goes a little bit higher, then it won't. It is an odd novel.
I need to add some historical context to this and separate the fact from the fiction, just in case John thinks that he might be working for like Bill Gates or something, in his misinformation machine. So contrails, as Spiro pointed out, contrails are condensation trails. So it's condensation trails. So of course there's condensation coming out the back, right? Chemtrails are something completely different. Geoengineeringwatch.org, I think, is the website that actually tracks these. And there are patents going back to the 50s for weather modification. So it'll be listed as weather modification. HAARP, high altitude Resonance Project, but there's 2 A's, high, HAARP, Tesla scalar waves being thrown at each other. Man, this has been going around for a long time. But I think the thing that is most telling, as Slick Woody said earlier, is we are dealing with literally Satanists at the globalist level. And what is being sprayed on you is barium and aluminum, which is BAAL. You are being sprayed with the devil himself, Baal.
You quoted Slick Witty. Like,
yeah, it's funny, all you people out there in the chat coming against me. Come for me, come for me. But this is how I'm going to tie it all together. It's actually the only airline that's doing this is Spirit Airlines. And
I know they can't even keep track of a 6-year-old, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just came into the news that
they're on top of things there.
The kids going to Colombia or somewhere, wherever they fly. But this is really what's going to surprise you, folks. It's like they have named Ed Liptrap the head of the chemtrail program. That's what's going to surprise you. And, he plays it down. He plays it down like, oh, they skipped my flight. You ever wonder why he's flying all the time on Spirit? I mean, he just seems to be flying everywhere. He says he's got a mom out in California. He's always got an excuse for something to fly, but he's on Spirit Airlines an awful lot. And,
yes,
you know what they
Spirit
say?
Airlines, the Metro bus of the
yeah, that's like what's that one? The 1 penny bus to the Econa bus that you can ride. It'll cost you 1 cent to ride from Indianapolis to Chicago. Megabus, yeah, that's it. Megabus. We got Mega
did
Spirit.
That once. Yeah.
Did she have to pay a penny?
No, she went down to visit her sister in Florida, and I think it was like $39 each way. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, she had to ride in a suitcase under the cargo, but that was all good. They gave her a straw to breathe out of. It's like Darth Vader.
Good conspiracy there from
yes. Hey,
Ed's
I think
the CEO of
we
Spirit,
did pretty good tonight. Everybody had a decent conspiracy. I'm impressed. I'm impressed, folks. Well, I'm going to take the banner off because we're done with that part. So I think next week we're going to try to get John Rust to come on. I'm going to contact him and see what's up. And David Shelton won't be there to bust his chops. So let's do one more. Let's do one more 8-ball. Let's see. Will we get John Rust next week? Hold on. This is just in. Fresh off the 8-ball. Very doubtful. Well, remember, GTG chat says it's not reliable, but we'll see. I mean, last time he was in his bus with a lousy connection.
It's the best we got.
The best we got.
8-ball.
All right, let's see if we got any last-minute viewers here on this. Oh, we did great. Look, Janet said we did great. So we got our people are impressed with our thing here. So, all right, everybody. Hey, thanks for coming on again. Loyal panelists and all that. So we'll see everybody next week and have a fun, Merry New Year or Happy Christmas or whatever the heck it is. So we'll see you next year. We'll see you next year. We're going to have a show, so make sure you guys come on because it'll be January 2nd. Hangover will be over. Come on, the show and all that. And that's good. So we had 0 people on Twitter chime in. So maybe it doesn't work, or maybe they just don't care, or maybe both. Well, I don't know. All right. See you later. See you next week, guys. Thanks for coming on. Thanks, viewers, for making it a good show. And we'll catch you next week, 9 p.m. Tuesday, live.